everybody, welcome to the show. Today, we're diving into a topic that might seem a bit odd at first, but trust me, it's super relevant to all of us complaining. I mean, who doesn't complain, right? It's like a universal language. So, let's get into it. You know, I was thinking about how often we complain about the weather. It's such an easy go-to for small talk. Like, if you're in the US, you can just say, "Can you believe this rain?" And boom, you've got a conversation starter. Personally, I complain when it rains, especially on weekends. I mean, who wants to be cooped up inside when it's beautiful outside?
Right, I totally get that. It's like when you have plans for a picnic and then bam, the sky opens up. But do you think people complain more about the weather in certain places? I mean, I've heard that in places like Seattle, it's almost a sport to complain about the rain.
Exactly. In Seattle, it's practically a rite of passage. They have so much rain that it becomes part of their identity. But then, you have places like Arizona where people complain about the heat. It's all about perspective, right? And speaking of complaints, let's talk about traffic. Oh man, traffic is a big one.
Oh gosh, yes, I can't even. I mean, being stuck in traffic feels like time just stops. It's like you're in this weird limbo. What do you think makes traffic so frustrating? Is it just the time lost, or is it the feeling of being trapped?
Great question. It's definitely a mix of both. When you're stuck in traffic, it's not just about the time, it's the loss of control. You're sitting there and you can't do anything about it. It's like being in a bad movie that you can't turn off. And then there's the rising prices.
Oh man, don't even get me started on that. It's like every time I go to the grocery store, I feel like I need to take out a loan just to buy some eggs. Why do you think everything keeps getting more expensive?
Haha, right? It's wild. It feels like every year the cost of living just creeps up. It's a combination of inflation, supply chain issues, and honestly, just the way the economy works. For young adults, buying a house feels like a distant dream. I mean, I remember when my parents bought their first house, and it was a fraction of what it costs now.
Wow, that's crazy. So, do you think we'll ever get to a point where housing prices stabilize? Or is it just going to keep climbing forever?
That's the million-dollar question. It's hard to say, but let's not forget about another common complaint: government.
Oh boy, here we go. I mean, it's like every time I turn on the news, there's something about corrupt politicians or terrible government services. It's like, can't we just get a break?
Exactly. It's so frustrating. Many people have had disappointing experiences with government agencies. It's like you're just trying to get something done, and you hit wall after wall. It's enough to make anyone want to complain.
Haha, right? So, what do you think is the best way to deal with all this complaining? Should we just vent to our friends, or is there a better way?
That's a great question. Venting can be therapeutic, but it's also important to find solutions. Maybe we can turn those complaints into action.
That's interesting. So, instead of just complaining about the weather, we could plan indoor activities.
Exactly. Or instead of just grumbling about traffic, we could explore alternative routes or even carpool.
Wow, I love that. It's like turning complaints into opportunities.
Yes, and that's what I want everyone to think about today. So, before we wrap up, I have a few questions for you. What's the most common topic of small talk?
I think it's probably the weather, right?
You got it! And what does the verb commute mean?
Oh, that's when you travel to work, right?
Exactly. And lastly, what's one thing that seems to get more expensive all the time?
I'd say groceries.
Spot on. All right, folks, remember to sign up for our $1 listening practice seminars and download our free Listening Time podcast. Subscribe to the channel, click on the bell, and follow us on Instagram. I'll see you next time.